Stop everything for a second, because what just happened in Game 3 between the Los Angeles Lakers and the Houston Rockets might be the clearest sign yet that this team is either built for a deep playoff run or dangerously close to falling apart when the pressure hits its peak. And trust me, if you're a real Lakers fan, you're going to want to hear this all the way through. But before we break it all down, go ahead and like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your take in the comments, because this is one of those moments where every opinion matters. All right, let's get into it. Because on paper, the Lakers had no business winning this game. I mean, seriously, if you just looked at the box score without watching a single second, you'd probably assume the Rockets walked away with a statement win. 20 turnovers. Let that sink in. 20. And not just careless mistakes early in the game. These were late-game turnovers, the kind that usually cost you everything in the playoffs. On top of that, they gave up 18 offensive rebounds. 18. That's not just a weakness. That's a red flag waving right in your face. And yet, they still won. That's the part that should both excite you and make you a little nervous at the same time. Because what we saw wasn't a clean, dominant playoff performance. It wasn't one of those nights where everything clicks and you cruise to victory. This was messy. This was exhausting. This was the kind of game where your heart rate doesn't drop until 10 minutes after the final buzzer. And somehow, some way, the Lakers found a way to survive. Now let's talk about how that actually happened, because the final sequence of regulation felt like something straight out of a movie. The Lakers are down 6 with under 30 seconds left. At that point, most teams are already thinking about Game 4. The crowd is loud, the momentum is gone, and the Rockets are playing like a desperate team that refuses to go down 3-0. Then Marcus Smart happens. He reads the pass, jumps the lane, and suddenly the entire energy of the game flips. Gets fouled on a three-point attempt, knocks down the free throws, and just like that, there's life again. You can feel it. The tension shifts. The Rockets hesitate. And then, of course, it's LeBron James. Because when the moment gets that big, when everything is on the line, you already know who's going to step into the spotlight. He picks the pocket, pulls up, and drains the shot to tie the game. No panic, no hesitation, just pure control, over time. And at that point, you could tell both teams were running on fumes. LeBron looked tired. The entire rotation looked tired. Guys like Luke Kennard were clearly dealing with heavy legs after logging serious minutes. This wasn't about fresh energy anymore. This was about grit. And that's where the Lakers, for all their flaws in this game, showed something real. They didn't fold. Marcus Smart continued to be everywhere. Deflections, steals, hustle plays that don't always show up in highlight reels, but completely change the outcome of a game. 5 steals again, 11 total through 3 playoff games. That's not just good defense. That's disruptive, game-breaking impact. And here's the thing. Without Marcus Smart, the Lakers probably lose this game. They don't force overtime. They don't create those extra possessions. They don't swing momentum when it matters most. He's not just a role player right now. He's becoming a core piece of this playoff identity. But let's not overlook LeBron, because what he did tonight deserves real attention. 29 points, 13 rebounds, a double-double in a playoff game where he played 45 minutes and barely sat in the second half. At this stage of his career, that's not normal. That's not something you just expect. Yes, he had 8 turnovers. And yes, some of those came at the worst possible times. But when the game was on the line, he delivered. And that's been the pattern. Messy at times, dominant when it matters. Now, here's where things get interesting, because despite the win, there are real concerns that you can't ignore. The turnovers aren't just a one-game issue. This has been happening. The offensive rebounds allowed, that's been consistent too. Through 3 games, they've given up over 50 offensive boards. That's not sustainable. Not against better teams. Not deeper into the playoffs. So while the Lakers are up 3-0, and yes, that's a commanding position, this series hasn't exactly been a statement of dominance. It's been a test of survival. And that brings us to the Rockets. Because give them credit, they played like a team with nothing to lose. No Kevin Durant. And still, they pushed this game to the absolute limit. They defended hard, attacked the glass, and never backed down. But they just didn't have enough consistent offense. And that's where the Lakers' defense deserves recognition. Even with all the chaos, they held Houston under 41% shooting and around 28% from three. They made life difficult. They forced 15 turnovers of their own. So while the offense wavered, the defense held the line. And that's the balance this team is trying to figure out, because when they lock in defensively, they look dangerous. When they take care of the ball, they look like contenders. But when those two things don't align, you get games like this. And you can't rely on miracle finishes forever. Midway through this video, if you're still rocking with this breakdown, go ahead and hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and tell me in the comments, do you trust this version of the Lakers to close out this series cleanly, or do you think the cracks are starting to show? Now let's talk about the supporting cast, because that's going to determine how far this team really goes. Rui Hachimura continues to be one of the most efficient shooters on the floor, 4 of 7 from 3 tonight, and he's somehow pushing his already insane playoff percentage even higher. That kind of spacing matters, especially when LeBron is orchestrating the offense. Luke Kennard, despite a quieter night, still contributed across the board. 14 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists. Not explosive, but steady. The issue is efficiency. 1 of 6 from deep isn't going to cut it if he's playing heavy minutes. And speaking of minutes, that's another concern. LeBron played 45. Kennard played 45. Rui nearly 44. Marcus Smart 39. That's not a sustainable workload over a long playoff run. Fatigue is already showing. You could see it in the second half. The legs weren't there. The shots were short. The decision-making slowed down, which is why the potential return of Austin Reeves becomes huge. Even if he's on a minutes restriction, they need another ball handler. They need another scoring option. They need someone who can take pressure off LeBron so he's not carrying this kind of load every single night. Because if this continues, it's not about talent anymore. It's about endurance. And that's where this series could shift, even with a 3-0 lead. Now let's go back to something the coach mentioned, because it tells you everything about this team's mindset right now. Poise. That's the word. In a game filled with mistakes, bad possessions, questionable decisions, even from the coaching staff, they kept going. They didn't spiral. They didn't lose control emotionally. And that's not something every team has. You could see it in those final moments. No panic, just execution. Marcus Smart called it perfectly. You always have a chance. And that belief is what carried them through. But belief alone won't be enough moving forward. Because eventually, they're going to face a team that punishes every mistake. A team that won't let you survive with 20 turnovers. A team that will turn 18 offensive rebounds into a blowout. So the Lakers are at a crossroads. They're winning. They're finding ways. They're showing resilience. But they're also exposing weaknesses. And the deeper you go, the harder it gets to hide those. Now heading into Game 4, the opportunity is clear. Close it out. Finish the sweep. Don't give Houston any life. Because if the Rockets steal one game, suddenly the pressure shifts. Suddenly the fatigue matters more. Suddenly the questions get louder. And that's something the Lakers want to avoid at all costs. So what needs to change? First, ball security. It has to improve. No debate. Second, rebounding. You cannot give a team that many second chances. Third, rotation balance. Get more contributions so your stars aren't running on empty by the fourth quarter. If they fix even one of those areas, they become significantly more dangerous. If they fix all three, now you're talking about a legitimate title threat. But right now, they're walking a tightrope. Winning, but not dominating. Surviving, but not controlling. And that's what makes this team so fascinating to watch, because you don't quite know which version is going to show up. The disciplined defensive unit that locks teams down, or the sloppy, turnover-prone group that makes every game harder than it needs to be. And that uncertainty, that's what keeps this story wide open. Before we wrap this up, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and drop your thoughts in the comments. Are the Lakers showing championship DNA right now, or are they just getting by against a weakened opponent? Because heading into Game 4, everything is on the line. Not just for this series, but for how we view this team moving forward. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Do you believe this version of the Lakers can actually win a championship playing like this? Or is this the kind of performance that's going to get exposed in the next round?